For the first time in several years, Microsoft has removed all traces of diversity and inclusion from their twice yearly employee review process. These employee reviews are held every 6 months, and they have until now, until the most recent one, made diversity and inclusion, D&I, a required part of evaluating employee performance, and hence a key part of how promotions, bonuses, and raises were applied. I've got a screenshot here supplied by one employee at Microsoft of the May 2025 employee review section on diversity and inclusion. I want you to note when we look at the screenshot here, for those of you watching the video version, that Microsoft considers diversity and inclusion, at least up until May, to be a core priority with a number of focus areas. Here's, for example, take a moment to reflect, says the review document, on the focus areas you prioritized in the last period and how you defined success for this core priority. Engage in constructive one-on-one or group discussions around diversity and inclusion, actively participate in employee resource groups. And for example, Microsoft has employee resource groups for things like trans children, like so employees who want to gender transition their children. We've talked about that previously. They have an entire employee resource group for that, so employees can take part in that, and that helps their career. Really messed up, but that's the way it is. Complete diversity and inclusion learning. Reflect on new knowledge and practice what I learned. Mentor and or support a person who may benefit, on and on and on. And these sorts of priorities on diversity and inclusion directly impact your pay, your promotions, what level you get raised or demoted to within Microsoft. However, in the current employee review to this month, November of 2025, that diversity and inclusion section has been removed entirely. It's gone. According to one Microsoft employee who spoke to the Lunduke Journal on the condition of staying anonymous, while the specific diversity and inclusion language may have changed from year to year, this is the first time in many years that it has not been included at all. Quote, the diversity inclusion is just gone and not mentioned, like it never existed, end quote. And I gotta say, this is encouraging news. There's so much stuff that I can harp on Microsoft about. I used to work at Microsoft. I worked at Microsoft for many years. It's been a long time since I worked at Microsoft. I mean, I started working there in the 90s. But just the same, I have a lot of complaints about Microsoft. Both past and current. I have a lot of complaints. But I like to reward progress. I like to give the thumbs up when I see something good done in the right direction. This is a positive step. Just simply removing all of the diversity and inclusion stuff within Microsoft is an important step. Actually, there's a kind of an interesting point to be made here. You'll note that the topic of that review section is diversity and inclusion. There's no equity in there, right? They don't actually do DEI in Microsoft. They do D and I. And Microsoft has made a point of making it clear that equity is not something that Microsoft management and HR and whatnot is striving for. They were striving for diversity and inclusion, but not equity. And that's actually been a point of contention between Microsoft lawyers, management, HR and whatnot, and people who are kind of more woke and DEI activists within the company. It's been a point of contention for many years internally, but now diversity and inclusion is just gone. So I just want to say kudos to Microsoft for removing it. That said, I do want to caution being overly excited about this. This is not the first time we've seen Microsoft talk about removing diversity groups or DEI related sort of programs, but having not really done so. Last year, in fact, there was a whole bunch of headlines about how Microsoft was laying off all of their, diversity groups. All of their DEI groups are getting laid off. Microsoft is canceling DEI internally. And that simply wasn't happening. Those were last summer. It was a little over a year ago when that news broke. And the Lunduke Journal posted at the time, like, everybody settled down a little bit, because I talked with people internally, and Microsoft was making it clear that not only were they not getting rid of DEI at that time, they were actually doubling down on it at that time. Right? It just so happens that in their round of layoffs, a few DEI people got swept up in the layoffs. That's really all that happened last year. And so I caution everyone, because it really remains to be seen how this will impact Microsoft at large going forward. It's also important to bear in mind that we've seen a lot of moves like this from other big tech companies, where they've really just rebranded or renamed their efforts and taken a different approach to things. A case in point is IBM and Red Hat. If you've been following the Lunduke Journal coverage over the last several years, you know that IBM and Red Hat got into quite a bit of hot water because of their DEI-related programs. Specifically, they had quotas of how many white people and how many black people to hire. They wanted to make sure that it was 30% black in certain, like, it was weird. It was really weird. It was really racist. It was really discriminatory. In fact, the Lunduke Journal released videos of, like, the Red Hat CEO specifically talking about having race-based quotas for hiring and firing. The IBM CEO talked at length about how they had actually fired executives and managers for failing to hire enough people of the right skin color. They tied employee compensation directly to how diverse your team was. So if you didn't have a diverse enough team, you actually got paid less as an executive or manager. It was crazy. It was crazy amount of discrimination. It was off the charts. It was highly illegal. And it resulted in a number of lawsuits against both IBM and Red Hat. So then earlier this year, IBM and Red Hat made it very clear that they were ditching DEI policies, right? They were just getting rid of them entirely. And for a little bit, it kind of seemed like they were following through with that. And then as the summer months approached, the Lunduke Journal started getting tidbits internally that made it clear that they were just taking things under the radar and changing the names of their DEI programs. We got these chat messages that came out that were from, these ones were from May, talking about changing the names of diversity and inclusion to just use the word inclusion because diversity was getting flagged too much. And they quote, "We're trying to take it under the radar." The DEI department, it turns out, was still there. It just was now called inclusion, right? And it sits within the leadership, culture, and inclusion team. And it just was on and on and on like this. So certain things did go away, right, within IBM and Red Hat. They did remove the paid incentives for hiring and firing people based on skin color, because they were getting sued for that sort of thing. And ultimately they were going to lose those lawsuits, or at least have to pay to settle them, at least quite a few of them. However, they were taking a lot of the more DEI stuff underground, right? As they put it, quote, under the radar. So they were still kind of really existing. So I caution everyone to be skeptical, but while we remain skeptical, let's definitely make sure we give the thumbs up for progress, right? So if Microsoft is coming along and dropping, I mean, they did drop the diversity and inclusion stuff from their employee review process. That is a huge step in the right direction towards moving away from that woke, weird, leftist super discrimination that we don't want to be a part of, right? That's a good move back towards meritocracy, which any engineering organization should really be focused on. And so I applaud this. I'm skeptical, but I applaud this. One of the reasons I am skeptical is that over the last year, Microsoft, there's been a lot of mixed messages and a lot of very left-leaning politics coming out of Microsoft. For example, I'm going to go ahead and read just a couple of these little tidbits here from Pride Month this year that I posted earlier. Microsoft is beginning their Pride 2025 activism campaign with a series of financial donations to LGBT organizations. Microsoft is also continuing to promote their Pride themes for their software, so you can have Excel, Word, and other Office software have trans and Pride themes. Here, you can see pictures of them. It's a rainbow. It looks like a unicorn had diarrhea all over your software. It's pretty intense. In addition, Microsoft is highlighting a series of trans and LGBT related stories, including advocating for trans children, encouraging their employees to get sex changes for their small children as young as 3, has been going on at Microsoft for years, with the software giant ensuring that their mandatory healthcare plan covers sex changes for minors. That's a real thing that still is going on, to the best of my knowledge. Microsoft, in their mandatory health plan that all employees have to pay into, they provide sex change treatments, this disgusting, for 3-year-olds. And they even have a document that I published about 2 years ago now, where they published this big giant white paper document where they talk at length about getting sex changes for little tiny kids, for toddlers, for 3-year-olds. It's off the charts disgusting. The leaked Microsoft document reveals effort to gender transition young children, and I published that back in 2024. And of course, you can just read that at the Lunduke Journal. There's also been a lot of political upheaval within Microsoft. We've got the Microsoft worker intifada that is still happening, and it's mostly just a lot of people throwing fits. Then there is Microsoft hiring Lisa Monaco as their president of global affairs. And this was such an interesting and bizarre move that the president of the United States weighed in on it. And I'm going to read the statement from President Trump about Microsoft's new president of global affairs. This was on, what was the date here? This was published on September 26th. Corrupt and totally Trump deranged Lisa Monaco, a purported pawn of legal lightweight Andrew Weissman, was a senior national security aide under Barack Hussein Obama and a lawfare and weaponization obsessed deputy attorney general under crooked Joe Biden, and Lisa's puppet boss, Attorney General Merrick Garland, who were all the architects of the worst ever deep state conspiracies against our country. Russia, the January 6th hoax, the illegal raid on Mar-a-Lago, the Biden autopen scandal, the documents witch hunt, and more. Monaco has been shockingly hired as the president of global affairs for Microsoft in a very senior role with access to highly sensitive information. Monaco's having that kind of access is unacceptable and cannot be allowed to stand. She is a menace to United States national security, especially given the major contracts that Microsoft has with the United States government. Because of Monaco's many wrongful acts, the U.S. government recently stripped her of all security clearances, took away all of her access to national security intelligence, and banned her from all federal properties. It is my opinion that Microsoft should immediately terminate the employment of Lisa Monaco. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. To my knowledge, Lisa Monaco is still working at Microsoft. Now, I'm not saying that Microsoft needs to, bend to the will of whoever is the president at any given time, but this was a distinctly very political move and a very politically leftist move, which isn't out of the ordinary for Microsoft. Here's one example just to drive that point home. The CTO of Microsoft Azure, the chief technology officer of Microsoft Azure, big guy in Microsoft, is not a fan of Trump or Republicans or the USA. Quote, the US government is a fascist regime, he posted to his Blue Sky account. This is this is again from the CTO of Microsoft. Trump's foreign policy is explained by the fact that Putin has been blackmailing him with information that Trump doesn't revealed. I'm reading it exactly as he wrote it. Any actions he takes against Russia are cover that he and Putin agree to. The Supreme Court continues to show it's an enabler of the fascist regime. The U.S. government is a fascist regime. It's horrifying, and it's even more horrifying that the Republican Party and the Supreme Court do not just stand by and watch. They support and enable it. I mean, this sort of thing goes on and on and on. We had a huge flood of Microsoft employees celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk. After looking into it, the vast majority of those employees who were celebrating openly the murder of Charlie Kirk are still working at Microsoft. Not all. Microsoft did take action against some of them, but many of them are still working at Microsoft today. Again, the Microsoft there's so many random anti this, anti that groups at Microsoft. Here we've got the anti-Israel group. They've been regularly throwing just like tantrums at Microsoft events, yelling about Jews get out. It's basically just anti-Jewish groups. It's nuts. And most of those people still work at Microsoft. Not all. Some of them were fired, some of them were not. It's kind of a mixed bag. And so when you look through the political actions of Microsoft over the last 6 months to a year or so, it's mixed, but it's distinctly left-leaning, right? It's very, very strongly left-leaning. So what does that mean going forward? Will we see diversity and inclusion make a renewed appearance where they double down on it, but they just rename it or take it under the bridge or under the water? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, but this is one good move, right? Removing the diversity and inclusion stuff from their employee review program. That's a good move. Hopefully, we see them follow through and actually continue to remove that sort of discriminatory, bigoted policies from the whole of their company. But I don't know. Now, before we head off, though, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Microsoft is doing some things that I approve of beyond just simply removing the D&I stuff from their employee review process. Microsoft just yesterday released the source code for Zork 1, 2, and 3. Now, Microsoft has been gobbling up left and right all sorts of gaming companies. They got Activision now. Microsoft is Activision. That's crazy to me that that's a thing. But they gobbled up Activision and Blizzard and all that. That's all Microsoft. It's one big happy company now. But that means that all of those early Activision titles, including all the companies that Activision gobbled up, which includes Infocom, are now Microsoft. So Microsoft owns Zork. To me, that's crazy. To me, I kind of hate that. But Microsoft released Zork 1, 2, and 3, the original source code, under the MIT license, right? And actually a reasonable license to release it under. Now we can get Zork 1, 2, and 3. I love that. That's wonderful. Again, I have a lot of criticisms for Microsoft. We've talked about some of them already today. But when people do things right, when people do something that you like, kudos. You give the thumbs up, right? You encourage good behavior. You reward good behavior. Microsoft did something similar with the source code for the original Microsoft Basic, or semi-original Microsoft Basic, for the 6502 processor. This is a version which would go on to be modified to be used on the Commodore 64. This was the old Microsoft Basic. And here's what's crazy. They released that source code under the MIT license. I mean, this is good stuff. This is really good stuff. And I want to see more of this happening. So yes, Microsoft, more source code releases for your old software that you're not making money on anymore. I want to see Windows 3.1 out there. I want to see MS-DOS 5 out there. I want to see, let's get Quick Basic out there. You made this thing called Visual Basic for DOS that was pretty fun. Release that code for that one. You know what? Word for DOS 5.5. Release the source code for that. There's no way that Microsoft is earning revenue off of Microsoft Word for DOS anymore. Release the source code for it. What's the harm? Do it. You've shown that you're willing to. You've released source code for some earliest versions of DOS. I mean, very early versions, not exactly super useful versions, but early versions. We've now got the source code in assembly in 6502 assembly for the earliest versions of BASIC. We've now got the source code for Zork. I mean, we're ramping up here. Let's take it up a notch. Let's get Windows 3.0 or 3.1 out there. Let's get some early Microsoft games out there. Let's really start pushing this forward. I think that would be great. And while we're doing that, let's make darn sure we don't let more diversity and inclusion creep back into the employee review process. And let's make sure we're not just what was the word? Taking the DEI stuff under the radar like IBM and Red Hat are. Let's actually eradicate that sort of anti-meritocracy, pro-discriminatory stuff. I censored myself there. I almost said a naughty word, but let's just take it. Let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of it. And yeah, you get rid of that sort of thing. A couple of random leftists are going to yell and scream for a bit. But you know what? Let them. It's still the right thing to do, and it's still the right thing for Microsoft's core business. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers for making it possible for me to do this sort of coverage. Go to lunduke.com. Tons of places to listen, to watch, interact, to read, all the stuff from the Lunduke Journal, and all for free. But if you want to support the work of the Lunduke Journal, if you want to help keep the Lunduke Journal rocking without any big tech influence, without taking any money from Microsoft or IBM or any other corporation, consider becoming a subscriber. Right now, it's 50% off monthly, yearly, and lifetime subscriptions. The link is right up there at lunduke.com, along with where you can, get subscriptions via Locals, Substack, X, YouTube, Patreon, Bitcoin, however you want to subscribe, you can subscribe. It's all up there at lunduke.com. And also, I would like to thank all of the tech whistleblowers who over the years have provided so much very important information to the Lunduke Journal and trusted the Lunduke Journal to get it out there to the world. Whistleblowers from Adobe and Microsoft and IBM and Red Hat and on and on and on. You've provided an invaluable service for the entirety of the tech industry. And I couldn't do this without you. So thank you. There's a link up there at lunduke.com that says become a tech whistleblower, just like we received today with the screenshots of the diversity and inclusion portion of the previous Microsoft review processes. We get all that stuff from tech whistleblowers. And I want to make this very clear. Protecting the confidentiality, protecting the identity of whistleblowers is a core part of the Lunduke Journal. I have never and will never disclose the identity of whistleblowers. That is just a core thing. In fact, I work very hard to make sure that whatever information is provided to the Lunduke Journal is very carefully vetted, for one, to make sure it's legit, right? Because we don't want to just publish random gobbledygook, and we want to make sure this is real stuff. But two, to make sure that there's no identifiable information within those documents, right? No watermarks or metadata or all sorts of things. And so we very carefully go through everything to make sure that as best as possible, we protect the identities of whistleblowers. And I really appreciate the trust that all of you have put in me in order to accomplish that. And it's invaluable, but it's just the same. Thank you to the whistleblowers. You're incredibly brave. If you do become a lifetime subscriber, you can be added here to the amazing Lunduke Journal lifetime subscribers wall. And you'll notice it's full. It's very, very full. I've got a good handful of more names that need to be added to this wall. those will be added next week. Thank you to everyone who has emailed in and said, hey, add me to the wall. I only add people to the wall who specifically email in and ask. I don't automatically add lifetime subscribers here. I'm not going to out you. I'm not going to out you as a Lunduke Journal subscriber. You have to be asked. But there's a couple more people that need to be added to this wall. I didn't forget about you, but as you can see, I need to jury rig your names into there because we're running out of space. Once again, thank you to everyone who makes the Lunduke Journal possible. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare end broadcast.